there's a good chance you've heard of and tried intermittent fasting yourself. Recent news reports raised panic over this very popular style of eating within certain time windows, saying that this very prevalent method increased heart risk by an alarming 91%. But before you jump to any conclusions, know that doctors say that there are many gaps in this news piece. Let's break them down and go beyond the panic headline. First, some quick background. Intermittent fasting involves a meal schedule where you fast for a certain number of hours per day and eat in a short time window in between. A common approach is to eat, say, between noon and 8 pm and fast for the remaining 16 hours. In more extreme versions, some people consume all their required calories in just one meal sitting, fasting for the rest of the day, or even eat every alternate day. Until now, this has remained a very popular way to try and lose weight, lower blood pressure, and improve blood sugar levels, as many short-term studies have shown. Interestingly, many Indians have always followed intermittent fasting for religious reasons, including Ramadan, Hindu fasts, or even the Jain's Padushan.
I'll say maybe 10 to 12% people practice this intermittent fasting, we don't have such data as such, but the data what we have is for American, definitely there is a data where they have proven that from 18 years to 80 years, they have a data that they have almost 8 to 10% people preach this intermittent fasting.
So far so good, right? Well, on March 18, researchers presented an analysis by a Shanghai-based School of Medicine that aimed to study the longer-term effects of intermittent fasting. They found that people who restricted food consumption to less than 8 hours per day had a 91% higher risk of dying from cardiovascular disease over a median period of 8 years relative to people who ate across 12 to 16 hours. Now, this news caused panic all over the world, including in India. However, even Dr. Victor Wenzong, co-author of the study, says that it's too early to make a judgment on intermittent fasting based on this study alone, as he told NBC News. The study is large in scale. It followed 20,000 Americans and asked them to self-report what time they ate in 2 interviews, 2 weeks apart, and repeated this process for 8 years, assuming that this eating window is what they followed in their regular diet. The first glaring point to note is that this study has not yet been peer-reviewed. Secondly, self-reported studies must always be taken with a grain of salt. And thirdly, we do not know enough about the focus group and their existing conditions or what quality of food they're eating.
We need to go into the subgroup analysis to find out which of these patients actually suffered from increased cardiovascular mortality. It could be so that the patients who started on intermittent fasting had a number of comorbidities like obesity, increased hypertension, increased diabetes, or maybe increased risk in the family, and previous history of coronary artery disease or stroke. So all these factors need to be considered before we jump into conclusions. So probably this subgroup analysis, thinking which patients were those who actually suffered from coronary artery disease. I know 90% is a big number, but need to understand that as well.
Moreover, since the study only tracked Americans, various genetic factors are unaccounted for. So what's next? Should you stop intermittent fasting? While more thorough data is awaited, doctors say that it might still have short-term benefits, but you could be more careful about adopting it as a practice for years together. Focus more on what you eat, how much you eat, rather than when you eat.
There's no need to press the panic button as of now. Yes, if you want to practice intermittent fasting, maybe you can be slightly liberal rather than 16 hours. Maybe you can have that 12 hours. And anyways, having early dinner and keeping a window of around 2 to 3 hours before you hit the bed and dinner time, I think so it's a good idea. It's a time-tested, age-old tradition in India. So I think so it's valid for us. But yes, when you actually practice that, what you eat is very important in that 8 hours or 10 hours period when you are eating. I think so sticking to an low carb diet, low sugar diet, balanced diet, protein rich diet, and nutritious diet. I think so that's very important.
What What would you like us to talk about next? Tell us in the comments.